everybody, welcome to the Instrumental Lab. This video is going to go over some tips and techniques to help get you started into the lab. So first thing when you come in, if you notice that your benchtop is cluttered with glassware, first thing we have to do is put it away. So after we get our workspace cleaned up, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and wipe it down with Simple Green to make sure that we have a nice clean area to work with. So we're going to put on some gloves, grab our spray bottle of green Simple Green, and go ahead and clean up our area. And notice the most important piece of personal protective equipment that Ashley has on are her safety glasses. They must always be on as soon as you enter the lab. After we get our area cleaned up, we can bring our chemicals and glassware over and start getting set up to be able to make our standards. It's helpful if you can gather everything at one time, all the glassware that you'll need, maybe a roll of label tape to make some labels so you know what everything is, and all the solutions that you will need to make your standards. Alright, now we're ready to get started. So we're going to take our stock solution, it's 1000 ppm of unknown B, and we need to pipette 5 mils, but we never want to pipette from a stock bottle. So what I always do is grab a graduated cylinder, and if we know we need 5 mils to pipette, pour about 7 or 8 mils in the graduated cylinder. This way we don't waste any of our stock solution, or we don't waste as much of our stock solution. Go ahead and pour the solution into a labeled beaker so you know what it is if you walk away from it and come back to it. You never want to pipette out of volumetric glassware or graduated cylinders. There's a chance the pipette can get stuck, and they're not very fun to get apart. So now we want to pipette our solution. Sometimes it's easier to do this without gloves, so if you want to deglove a hand or part of a hand, that's perfectly okay. First things first, we want to depress our pipette bulb and stick it loosely on the end. If you jam it on too far, you won't be able to get the bulb off quick enough and you'll suck liquid up into the bulb. That's bad. Try not to do that. If it happens, grab a new pipette bulb. So now we'll grab our liquid and pull it up into the pipette. Go up past the graduated mark. With our thumb on top, we'll slowly wiggle the pipette back and forth to get it down. Then we want to wipe the tip off with a chem wipe. This keeps any extra liquid from going into our flask. And let the liquid drain. Keeping in mind that the pipettes are calibrated to hold a little bit of liquid in the tip, and you never want to blow that out into your flask, or you've put more than your 5 milliliters in. So now we have our sample into our flask, and it's time to dilute it up to the mark. There are several different ways to do this. The way I typically do it is I will pour the distilled water, whatever you're using to dilute your sample with, in about halfway, so it fills the bulb up. If you're working with solids at the halfway point, you want to give it a good shake and get all your solids to dissolve. If it's a liquid, I pour up to the stem of the volumetric flask and use one of the disposable droppers to put the liquid in up to the mark. This keeps you from overshooting. And then we'll stopper the flask. and invert it to give it a thorough mixture. When you're inverting your flasks, it's really important to remember that you hold on to the stopper. You don't want it to accidentally fall out, and then liquid goes everywhere. And unfortunately, you have to do it all over again. So now our solution's made, and we're going to put our solution into a cuvette to run on our UV vis. So we'll use our quartz cuvette, and we'll grab a clean disposable dropper, and we can pull liquid right out of the volumetric flask. We want to fill our cuvette up about 3/4 of the way. It's really important to make sure that you don't have air bubbles in the cuvette. Now we're ready to take our sample over to the instrument. So now we have our sample over to the UV vis. So we're going to gently wipe off the cuvette with our Chem wipe, place it into the instrument, and now we're ready to start using the software. But before we touch the computer, the first thing we do is to take our gloves off. You never want to touch the computer with a gloved hand. You don't know what may have been on your gloves. The last thing you want to do is put acid on a keyboard, someone else comes over and touches it, and then your hands start burning. So we finished running our experiment. Now it's time to clean up. So we get rid of all our chemicals in the appropriate waste container. Some can go down the drain, others cannot. And now we're ready to clean our glassware, and most importantly, after we clean it, we put it away. So here's what we're going to do. Turn on the water and make a mess all over the sink. That's okay. Everybody fights with the sink. Sink typically wins, but we're all good with that. We're going to use our soap that's used for cleaning glassware. This is a soap solution. 2 squirts will do it. Grab our brush and make sure that we get everything out and off from the beaker. It's also important to remove your label tape. You don't want that to stick on there. It gets kind of gummy. After we wash it, we give it 3 rinses with regular water. And then we do 3 good rinses with distilled water. The trick with distilled water, what I would do is turn the water on first, then put your glassware underneath. Sometimes if you turn the handle too quickly, glassware shoots out from your hand because of the force of the water, and it'll shatter in the sink. If that happens, just let it break. Don't try to catch it. We don't want anybody to get cuts. After we've washed it, go ahead and put it away wet. It will dry in your drawer. This is the end of the introductory video. I hope everybody has a wonderful time in lab, and good luck.